Hi, and welcome to the 8th part already in the My Python Auto Rigging tutorial series. Today I want to talk about two things. I want to show you how to bind your mesh to the skeleton that we've made. And at first I want to talk about the Auto Rigger class itself, because I don't know if you noticed it, but the field values that we've added, like the integer field, they actually don't update, right? And that's for a reason, and I want to say this for the last part because it's really a bit weird getting that to work. So let's just dive straight in. So this is what we had, right? And for example, the spine count, and this doesn't actually update, so I'm going to show you real fast. So if I turn this into 19 or 9, right, it's not going to make them, it's still going to make 4 of them, which kind of defeats the whole purpose of it. So I want to fix this, right? But first I want to talk about what I've added here in the init function. So I set the units to meters and I resize the grid because I want to make sure that the user is forced to use meters when they do the rig, because it is better for multiple reasons. So that's why I've added those two lines there, and the current size or the current unit you can also set to centimeters if you want to meters. In this case I set it to meters, and then I resize the grid, because if you don't, the grid will be either tiny or huge. So in this case I resize it well, and everything else is still the same, right? So let's have a look at the spine code first. So what I want to do is I want to change it first into a slider instead of an integer field. I want to, because slider is a little bit more easy to use, right? And it looks better as well when it comes to the actual UI and design. So I'm gonna comment my spine count out. I'm just gonna add here comment, and then I want to add a new one, same value name, so spine count. In this case though, I want to go for an int slider group like this. It has multiple things as well. The first one that you can add is the label again, so in this case I'm going to call it spine count, which makes sense. Then the minimum value, well, I want to have at least one spine, right? Maximum value, let's say 10 here, so we don't go overboard. Default value in this case is 4. Then you can also say step, so that dictates how many increments there will be every time you change the slider. So for example, if you set to 2, so right now the value is 4. If you would want to change the slider, it will go to 6, 8, 10, etc. Okay, let's have a look real fast what it looks like. So I'm going to hit compile real fast, and then we should see there's now a slider or not, because these values are still looking for the integer field that we just commented out, so that's not going to work. So I'm going to comment them out as well real fast, and there you go. I think that was it. That was all of them. Let's have a quick look. There you go. So now we have a nice looking slider here, but we can't tell what the actual value of the slider is. You can do that though by just adding a simple tag here that says field equals true. Let's say this real fast. And now you should see there's actual value here, right? Beautiful. Now we also don't need this label here anymore, the amount of spines. So I'm going to get rid of it. There you go. I'm going to do the same thing here though for the fingers, so I'm going to comment the finger count out and do the same thing here, finger count. So again, integer slider group, label, finger count, so I should add those there. Minimum again is 1, and maximum is 10. The default value is 5 fingers, step is 1. Same here, field equals true. There you go. Okay, so let's have a quick look. This looks a lot better, right, than just having a field here. This looks pretty. Okay, so how do you get this to actually update? And that's something I've been working on, and it did my head in until I figured it out. I go, oh, that makes sense. So what I want to do though is, when we hit the button create base locators, I wanted to call a local function, and then in that function I want to update the values, and then I want to pass it on to the locator class. So here I'm going to make a new function. Let's call this do locators, for example. The reason why I don't call it locators, because there's already a class called locators, right? This one. So I don't want to create a conflict. That's why I call it do locators. And in here I want to do something. I'm just going to call pass, which means it's just going to do nothing. So I'm gonna make a new button here. Let's call this base button again. Label. Again, that's the create base locators. Width still 200, and then for the C, I want to call it a local function, right? That will be in this case do locators without the actual brackets. So you don't add the brackets over here, just the actual name of the function. That's all you need to do. That's like that. So one would think that this would work, right? So I'm gonna compile it, I'm gonna hit this, and then I'm gonna get immediately a big fat error here saying that do locators is not defined. Now if you read the message here as well, there, global name do locators is not defined. So it's looking for a global name, even though it's not a global function, right? It's a local function inside the class autorigger. So to fix this, we need to add self dot in front of it, self dot do locators. Again, this tells Python like, hey man, this function is in the actual class that we're working in right now. So don't look for a global function, but look for a local function. This now, and we don't get any errors except for the one that says here. So it takes no arguments, right? We don't take any arguments in the actual function name, but there are two given, which means that Python by itself will pass through two arguments to that function. The arguments are self and void. If you add that, it's gonna work. So by default, it adds two functions, right? So two arguments to the function, self in this case and void. Now I test it out, I don't get any errors, but nothing happens, right? That's perfect. Okay, so let's see if we can actually print out the spine count value. So I'm going to make a new variable called spine count. In this case, I added an underscore, so it's a different variable name, but for us it's still the same. And then we do the same thing as we've done before, right? So it's slider group. Then we get the spine count, and then we say Q is true and V is true, like this. So again, the spine count in this case refers to the one that we have over here, right? So okay, let's test it out. And I can tell you already that we're going to get an error again. Again, the same issue here, right? It says that the global name spine count is not defined. Again, it's looking for a global variable name called spine count, which doesn't exist. So we need to do the same thing here, right? So in front of the spine count, I'm going to add a self dot. Also for my prefix, I'm going to do the same thing. And also for the finger count, I'm going to add a self dot. And double elbow as well. So it's a self. So it's a local variable name. Again, same here. So spine count self dot. And then I should be able to print out the spine count here. Let's get rid of the pass function because we don't need it anymore. Okay, so I'm going to make it a little bit smaller so we can see it actually update theory. Okay, let's clear this. So base locators, we get 4. Now we have changed to 8. We get actually an 8, right? So now it actually updates the actual value that we're going to need. So I'm going to do the same thing here for the finger count. So finger count in slider group, again self dot finger count. Oh, Q is true and V is true. See, we don't get any compiling errors. We don't. Beautiful. And then the last one will be my double elbow. And that's a checkbox, and then it will be self dot. Oh, I can't type. Double elbow. Same thing here, Q is true and V is true. Okay, so next step would be to pass this on to the locator class. So it's the same thing we've done before. In this case, we just say locators.create locators, and then we pass on the functions. The arguments. In this case, there will be spine count. Sorry, I can't really type at the moment. Finger count and a double elbow. Okay, let's test this, right? Let's set it to 10, create base locators, and we get 10 spines. Beautiful character, right? Beautiful character. So this works fine. That's beautiful. So that was the easy part. So as you can see, right, we have a lot of functions here and a lot of buttons in the actual file, and don't want to have that many, right? So I want to create like a button that will create the joints, but that will also by default create or set the orientation. And I want to have a button that says finalize everything, that will add the controllers and the IK handles to everything. So the create joints window, let's go here first. Right now we have create joints, then we also have the set orientation, and I don't want to do it like this, right? I want to do it in one single function. What I'm going to do now is just go paste this part over here and just set it below the create legs. So it does it by default, so we don't have to do it ourselves. Same thing for the IK handles. I want to do this in a button in my auto rig class that will by default create all the IK for us. I'm going to copy paste it here as well. So I'm going to do it like this. So create IK. Then I want to do the same thing here. There it is. Just copy paste it here real fast. There we go. Okay, let's do this as well. This should also be gone. Because I don't want to do this here, right? So delete and delete. Okay, so we now went from 4 buttons to 2 buttons. Let's do this, let's take it out real fast if it actually works. So base locators and then create joints. We only have 2. Then it by default sets the orientation correctly. So I'm going to check it real fast. I'm going to select my joints here and then I'm going to rotate them on Z. They should all rotate in the same manner. Beautiful. Oh, come on. There you go. They all follow the same. So the orientation is set correctly. That's actually what I want to have. Okay, so let's make a new button here. And that says finalize, right? So we also have a button here. We had a button here that says create controllers and create constraints. I want to do that in one single button. So I'll make a new one. Paste that button. And then I'm going to get a label that says finalize. Maybe rig. That sounds more fancy. Okay. W is 200 and C again. I'm going to go for a local function. So self.finalize rig. Like this. Okay, I have a function here. Def finalize rig. Again, we need to pass. We get 2 arguments from Python. So it's self void. Then in here, I want to make the controllers. So I'm gonna grab this part over here, these 2, because I want to do the same thing here as well. Over there, and then I want to call the actual function. So that will be controller.createController. Then first is the spine count that we want to pass through, and then the finger count. In this case, we don't add the actual double elbow. No, we don't. There we go. And then also for constraints and the IKs, I want to do that first. Yeah, I want to do that first. That will be create IK dot IK handles. I don't think we have any arguments to pass along, if I'm not mistaken. Create IK handles, no, nothing at all. Then I want to add the constraints. So that will be constraints dot create constraints. Then the first is the finger count. I don't know why I did it like that, and I apologize, doesn't make any sense, but yeah, you know. And finger count. So let's check it out real fast. Okay, so let's open this again. So I want to create my joints, create joints, and then I want to hit finalize rig. Then we get everything in here we need. So the functioning, IK handles, etc. Beautiful. See? That's nice. This all works. Okay. Next step though would be to bind the actual skin as well. So I'm gonna do everything. Okay. So the binding of the skin is actually not as difficult as it sounds, but you want to make sure that the user has selected a mesh, otherwise you can't bind anything, right? So you need to have the joint selected, the root joint, and a mesh. So what we can do here, for example, is that we can make sure that the user has selected a mesh in this case. So what we can do, I'm just gonna open a different file here real fast that I've already done. So let's first do this one. Wait for it. So at first I just want to make a button here that says bind skin. So I want to make a button here that says bind skin, so we don't have to delete all my controllers. So let's do this real fast. I'm going to delete this button over here. We don't need it anymore. Same for this one. I want to create a button that says bind skin, again W200, and then I want to do this in my constraints class because that kind of makes sense. So constraints dot, let's call this bind skin. Let's make a new bind skin function in my constraints class. Let's go down, 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 down. So oh, it should be here. Def bind skin like this. Okay. Do we get a new button? We get a new button here that says bind skin, and this is what I want to do for bind skin. For now, at least, in the end, I'm going to combine it all into one single function. But for now, for this video's purpose, I want you to do it like this. So first thing though is we want to make sure that the user has selected a mesh, right? So we want to make sure that there is something in the actual selection. We can check that though by just saying here base.ls and then SL is true. So selection is true. Now the .ls returns us a list, right? So we can check to see if the length is bigger than 0, then we can assume that it's a mesh, that the user is not a complete idiot. And if it's 0, then we want to have a pop message saying like, hey man, you probably want to select the mesh. So I'm going to check here to see if the length of selection is equal to 0. If it is, then I want to make a confirm dialog, which is just a pop-up message, with a title that says empty selection, for example. Then with the message, you have to select the mesh, for example like this. And then with a button, in this case I only want to have one button that says OK. And if we have something selected, then I want to do a quick pass. Here, let's check it out. Bind skin, you have to select the mesh, so we get the actual error message. If you have something selected, it's going to do nothing for now, but yeah. So you have to select the mesh. Beautiful, right? So how do you actually bind it? Well, there are multiple ways of binding the skin. The one that I prefer personally is the geodesic voxel method, which is this one, right? So the bind method geodesic voxel. You can also do that with skin cluster and then say BM is 0, then you get the closest distance, BM is 1, BM is 2. But the geodesic voxel is a little bit special because you need to do something different for it as well. So let's do the first let's do the skin cluster here. So you have the skin cluster. Then you need to select the mesh and then the root, right? So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to select, well, you can do selection. In this case 0, the first object in the list. Then the joint, in this case that will be the root, like so. Then I'm going to go for my binding method, that is 3. Then I want to make the smooth ways, make sure that it's 1. Then you can also add a drop-off radius. I'm going to set to 0. Like this. So the drop-off radius is like how far can the vertices, how far should the envelope expand on the joints. In this case, I want to set to super small. So let's just test it right. I'm just show you what it looks like. It's gonna be fun. So I'm gonna select my mesh. I hit bind skin. It's now bound to the mesh, but then you get really fucked up skinning. Really fucked up. This is as bad as it's gonna get. So how do you fix this, right? When you're using a geodesic voxel skinning method, you need to add a second line of code in this case, because you need to add a geometry bind as well. So you need to add a geom bind, and then on which skin cluster you want to bind this to. In this case, it's skin cluster 1. So how do I know this? Well, this is the one that Maya creates by default, right? When you create a new skin cluster, it gives the name skin cluster 1. Again, we set the bind method to 3, so which is the geodesic voxel, and now we need to set the values of it. We're going to say GVP. I forgot what it stands for. I think it's the settings. So let's just check it out real fast, right? In the binding method, bind skin. So you can set this one, for example, right? The resolution. This is what you want to have. In this case, it's set to 256, or you can go up to 64, 1024, etc. Right? So the GVP gives you the options to actually change the resolution of it, and also make sure that you do a valid voxel state in the end. That means that it's going to check to see if everything worked out in the end. So you do this. Well, the GVP takes 2 arguments. In this case, you need to do a bracket like this. And the first one is the how high do you want to set the resolution. In this case, I want to set it to 256, and then I want to validate it by adding a 1 there. Let's test it again. I'm going to do this like this. I'm going to go into my amazing menu, hit bind skin, and now it's going to work. It's going to take a while. There we go. Now we can actually do everything. Beautiful, right? So I didn't skin the cloth yet, but you can see, except for the chest area, everything works out pretty well. For the legs. But this is a whole different video that I'll want to do in maybe in the future, but let's see. So let's undo this real fast. This is still bound. I think it's still bound. Bound, yeah, okay, there you go. Okay, so next step what I want to do is I want to organize everything, right? Because right now everything's in one single layer, and when I hit bind skin or finalize rig, I want to put everything into display layers. So we can hide the joints, for example, and hide the IKs, and we just have the controls visible. That's ideal, of course. So what you can do is here you can create a display layer, right? So you do that by creating base.create display layer like this. Now you can set a couple things to true. Look closely here. I hope you can see it. So the first one is the no recurse. That's actually interesting. So that's if you set it to true, then everything selected will be added to that layer, which is perfect. And then I want to give it a name. In this case, I'm going to call it rig layer. Now I can't call it rig because that already exists. The name of the group of our joints is called rig. So that's why I'm going to give it a layer name. So the nr true adds everything that you had selected to your new display layers. I'm going to select my rig group. So that will be rig. Let's do this underscore to make sure we don't get conflicts. It's based on select in this case. And then I just want to select the group based on rig. So the rig itself. So then it will add a layer, and it will make a layer, and it will add the group rig to the layer. That's pretty much it. Okay. So next up, I want to add my IK as well. So I'm going to make an IK, and then we say base.ls, in this case, IK underscore everything. Now in this case, I don't want to create a new layer for it. I just want to add them to the current rig layer. You can do that by saying .edit display layer members. Then so which layer do you want to edit? I want to add the rig. I want to edit the rig layer, and then I want to add the IK to that. So which layer do you want to edit, and then which one do you want to add? Now I'm going to do the same thing for my controls as well. So I want to make a control is based on select. In this case, it's my master controller. Then I want to make a new layer based on create display layer, and then I want to give again the nr is true, so the current selection, and the name would be controllers. Let's go all caps because that makes it true. Okay, beautiful. So let's test out again. So I'm going to select my mesh, and I want to hit bind skin. Give it a couple of seconds, and you should see layers here. Oh, I get a big fat error. Oh, I saw what I did there. It should be underscore IK. Whoops. Okay, let's try this again. Okay. And bind skin. Now we should see 2 layers here. Rig layer, control layer. See, now you can actually have everything a little more organized. Now the clusters though by default are, since they are children of the spines, you can change that though by just turning off the show and then the deformers here. Now I've got a very clean looking rig. Beautiful. That's it. So I'm gonna finish this because I want to add more joints to this, because you can see right when I move this, you get a weird deformation here because the volume here is not that perfect. So I want to add more joints to this. I want to add like a rib cage kind of shape to it as well, so I don't have to do that much weight painting, hopefully. And I don't know if you've noticed it, but I've also created a class called face joints, and so that's probably my next step in the list. So I'm gonna make a facial rig using Python, and then I'm gonna make videos of it, of course. So I hope you enjoyed this series so far. If you have any questions, just leave a comment below, and I'll push this again on GitHub so you can see what I've done. So thank you for watching, and hopefully see you again soon.